Intentional Living podcast of December.
Yeah.
We're in Advent.
I had no idea until you just mentioned it. Yeah, it used to be a big part of my life, knowing all the seasons and the saints' days and the.
Were you an altar boy?
I was.
Yeah.
I was also in the choir.
Yeah, I was both of those. We were doing that probably in the days of Latin.
Yep, in the days of Latin. Mea culpa, mea culpa. It's like it reinforced family of origin dysfunction.
And you never lose it, just like family of origin dysfunction.
Yeah. Yeah. Always there when you need it.
As you know, I've been part of the Unity Church work for a long, long time, but I remember our Unity minister saying to me, Marty, once a Catholic, always a Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, in my 12-step experience, there was a lot of us in there referred to ourselves as recovering Catholics.
Yeah.
So
I used to say that, then I decided I thought that I don't want to put down my Catholicism. So
okay.
I'm just Marty, who has all these interesting things in his background and history and life experience.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. And I'm just John.
Exactly.
Doing what I know how to do, the best way I know how to do it.
That reminds me of that John Lennon song at the end of his first solo album. And he says, I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me, Yoko and me. And that's reality.
Yeah. Cool.
So what do we want to talk about today?
I don't know. I just kicked my shoes off, so I'm ready for whatever it is.
All right.
I was thinking going over some of the basic material and then letting whatever conversation come out of that go where it may. I would like to say that intentional living is a style that I guess developed me, and as it was developing me, I wrote it down. And it's a style of communication where I'm open to listening, to respecting the person in front of me, no matter what the accusations or, in my experience, it was convictions that they had because I worked in the jails. And then start right there. Start with where do you want to go from here? And offering people information about the how to and wherefore, how they find themselves in the situations they find them. Backtracking the end results to the process, the internal process that, in my mind, had to be in place for the end result, and for them it was jail, to manifest. So there was something internally that was giving them information that whatever they were doing was what they needed to do to survive.
So to clarify for the first time listener, when you say end result, what I'm hearing you mean is whatever's going on in my life right now, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, and usually focus on the part that you don't like.
Right.
That is troublesome.
Right.
And then starting there.
Being in jail is a pretty stark example of that.
You would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so.
It's a measurable result. Oftentimes in my life, I'm not really quite sure what's going on, but if I'm in jail, I don't have any doubt that I'm in jail.
And for the most part, the people that were in jail, they did have doubts. And the doubts were, there's something wrong with me, or everybody else set me up and I'm a victim. So to break through that, I've developed the intentional living practice and curriculum, I don't know how you call it curriculum, basic material that allows us to have a conversation that's different than why did you do that? Or
why did you make me do that?
Or why did you make me do that? To this is where I am, own it, and see what happens. Just acceptance. The short version is acceptance. I'm here. And I was a player in everything that happened to me before I got here. So what was my part? How did I contribute to where I find myself? And for me, it was divorce, inability to maintain long-term loving, caring relationships, estrangement from my children, living alone, yeah, that was it for me. And what I found was that I was conditioned, the conditioning I received as a child became the primary motivating force for my survival in behaviors and patterns, which were out of my awareness, they were subconscious. So over a period of time, I understood that if I simply owned what I would label the end result, like arrogant, it did something internal, like I'm arrogant. It did something internally that, and I can't explain it. It's an emotional state, and yet it's also, there's a constellation of feeling and thought that happens with I'm arrogant, and without the blame or judgment. Just simply arrogance is in alignment with what happened to me as a child. The development of the pattern of arrogance kept me safe. So I'm arrogant. And then I was in this emotional state, and I found myself thinking, I want to be kind, or I want to be open, or I want to be something different, and I would name it. And got a hold of this word intent, and I can't, that's another story. That's a lot of things happened, and I found myself, it is my intent to be kind. And after a moment, I found myself acting out of this new information, out of this new base of subconscious information, and that it was changed through the awareness, ownership, and then creating the intent. It worked. So I call all that ownership, emotion, intent, accountability. Just simply saying the truth of where I find myself. No blame, no judgment. And the magical part of this is out of blame and judgment. I'm not blaming myself for being arrogant. I'm not judging myself or blaming other people for being my arrogance. I'm simply owning it and setting in. And then it is my intent to be kind, or it is my intent to be open. And I find myself doing things differently. So it works, and I put together a body of work to, I want to say, comprehensively, coherently offer to other people, and that's where the problem arises in transferring this information as I see it, feel it, to somebody else, so they can see it, feel it from their perspective and meaningful for them. And then they choose to do it again, to move to accountability, to see the value in no blame, no judgment in this. And it's a place I'm beginning to believe that is out of the polarization that we find ourselves in internally and in our society. Non-dual acceptance and feeling. It's like the feeling of arrogance is, well, for me, it's a myriad of things, but I can sum it up in sadness and disappointment. And then the feeling that I have when I hear myself say, it is my intent to be kind, excitement and joy. And they're all one moment. It's like there's space for both of those to be there, and that reforms into what I see as my motivational force to come back to the accountability process when I find myself at odds, or what I call decompensating, or feeling something from the victim. Somebody did something to me, or the self-criticism place where I'm saying, well, there's something wrong with me. How come I didn't do it this way? I always do it that way. I always act nerdy or say something stupid. That's my go-to line inside my head. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? And then those moments are few and far between now. They come up. And what I know now is that they're pointing me to something hidden from me still in my subconscious. So I'm going to stop there.
One of the most important things that I heard you say just now, from my process as I learned and quote studied,
Yeah,
maybe practice is a better word.
yeah,
Accountability is the without blame or judgment.
yeah.
And what I've come to understand is that because of the nature of my little child defense against the danger of love, because that's what he perceived, love was dangerous, so don't let anybody love you too much.
Mm-hmm.
That defense had a hidden belief about there's something irretrievably broken about me.
Yes.
That makes me unlovable. And therefore, any attempt to blame or judge myself just becomes reinforcing caulk to the walls.
Yes.
And so it's that critical voice that we all have that seems just natural, that you were saying just a minute ago. Is like, why did I do that? Who did I think I was? And why didn't I do that better? Or wonder what that person thinks, or all of those, that endless loop of essentially self-violence, emotional self-violence.
Yes.
So what I had to learn, and this was really hard, and I watch it with people that are working on this process now, really hard to actually suspend blame and judgment, because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a familiar place to be in blame and judgment. It's like part of home base.
Yeah.
And so one of the formulas that you use and taught us, and we use it all the time now in our work, is just asking if one would be willing to suspend blame and judgment just for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You can go back to it when we're done, but would you be willing to suspend it, or would you be willing to consider suspending it? And there's value in that. The person who's asked that doesn't get that there's an enormous amount of love and respect that comes from the way that question is asked.
Yes.
And permission. And that's not something that little kid ever experienced.
Right.
And so for me, it took a long time to be willing to let go of judgment of myself if I said I'm arrogant, or the one that also choked me was I'm cruel.
Yes.
And or I'm mean. So being able to have guidance from a facilitator and an enlightened group of witnesses who had no stake in my emotional energy, created that environment where I was willing, without being conscious that was going on, at least not initially, I was willing to test not blaming myself for the state that I was actually experiencing, so that I could open myself to that experience that you then described, which I call the alignment with truth. That when I'm in truth, everything lines up in harmony. My mind, my body, my soul, and it vibrates at that higher level.
Yeah.
We use words like joy, exuberance, ecstasy, whatever, but my experience aligns with yours, that when I tell the truth, there's a physical recognition of that in my body.
Yes.
And there's a new sense of coming home, a deeper home than the one that my little kid defense built. There's a deeper home underneath that my childhood defense against love, against unconditional love, is covering up.
Yes.
But I believe that I was born in a love vibration, and that as I lost touch with that, or it got warped through the actual conditions of my life and my dysfunctional family, and it didn't erase it, it just covered it over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that original divine energy that wants to love, that wants to be loved, that wants to throw conditions out the window, that is actually at home without blaming or judging anybody.
And it's in the place least expected, which is ownership of a character defect.
Yes.
That to me is counterintuitive, just stark. I don't know the word to describe. Insidious. The cunning, baffling, powerful disease of avoidant behavior, whatever it is, addiction, mental health, whatever the symptom may be. It is that it's in the thing you work hardest to avoid, which is the admittance of a flaw. When you were talking, I could see myself as a little kid, or people as little children, when asked, "Did you take that cookie?" Well, the answer after that, it's you either lie or tell the truth, and either way, there's something going to happen to you that you don't want to happen. It's either going to be humiliation or gotcha, or now you can go. Now I have good reason to send you to your room. So you were guilty, and then you come into a room of people and they say, "Okay, did you take the cookie?" And it's like, no, I didn't even see the cookie jar. It's like the defenses come up when everybody in the room has the cookie that they took out of the cookie jar, and showing you, so that they allow you to show everybody else your cookie, and then see what happens. That's an interesting analogy I went to, but it's counterintuitive. It's 180 degrees out of what everybody's been. And I don't know if so much taught, like pedagogically taught, but experientially taught, that if you admit to the wrongdoing, you then become bad, and you receive punishment due to bad people. And that gets locked in your consciousness, your subconscious. And I don't want to be bad. That was I'm a nice guy. Just trust me, I'm a nice guy. Just don't do anything to piss me off and you'll be okay. Well, that's a dangerous person that says something like that. That's not a nice person that says something like that. That's somebody to be wary of. Well, I'm dangerous is one of my statements of accountability. And when I heard myself say that, it was like, dang, yes, I am. It is my intent to be kind and gracious. It is my intent to be open. It is my intent to be enthusiastic. Whatever, and you don't have to figure out the opposite of that. It's just whatever comes to you, whatever word resonates with the awareness of dangerous, arrogant. And for me, it's kind. Kind is the word that resonates. Or sometimes it would be self-forgiving. It is my intent to forgive myself, because I had no idea. I didn't want to do that. And I found myself doing it over and over and over. And it was coming from a place of survival, of little child, terrorized, need to survive. And me being dangerous and arrogant was simply in alignment with that. And it hurt other people. I'm not taking I don't want to downplay the hurt caused by this dysfunctional behavior. And I'm the same person now, only it is my intent not to hurt myself, number one, nor to hurt other people. And I run to this accountability process because I know it's going to gift me another opportunity to self-actualize and to become authentic and to be the person that I was born with and to be with. Wow. Yeah. So
Yep.
I want to comment on the silence that just happened. There's something that happens in this process of accountability, especially with two people who have experienced this together for a while, and people in the rooms, is that the need to comment or to do anything further than just simply be with each other in this moment is enough. It's like magical. It's freeing. And then waiting for whatever inspirational thing that may come from this moment of honesty and integrity that I've developed, and I know you, Marty, have developed out of this practice of accountability and owning projections and looking inward instead of blaming outwards. So I just wanted to say that. It's really
It's interesting that most of the great mystical traditions of the great religions of the world assert that all sound begins in the silence.
Mm-hmm.
Back to that paradox. And in the Christian tradition, there's a saying that Jesus said, where two or more are gathered together in my name, I am there, which I interpret as when two people are together with this intention to be honest and stay in the truth, then the truth shows up as a palpable presence. And it makes it easier to remain there. Again, it's to the rational mind, it's trained in Western psychology and all those wonderful things. That can sound mysterious or even woo-woo. And so the only way to, only comment to make on that is try it and see.
Yeah.
But I love the Quaker tradition. Originally, George Fox, who started the Quakers, or they were called the Friends in England in the 17th century, their tradition is to sit together in a circle in silence until somebody has something to say.
Yeah.
And if they sit for an hour and nobody has anything to say, that's perfectly fine.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I'm cool with that. When we were talking before we hit the record button, we were talking about going back to the basics, and then there's this flow that happens, and I believe whatever it is I need to say in the moment is said or not. And I'm not in my head trying to figure out what that is. I'm allowing it to move through either you or me, and it always has. I want to say I've never been disappointed, and there's been times of silence that have been. I've gotten like, ooh, am I supposed to say something right now? And I breathe and let it go, and it moves on. Cool.
Part of that is it's cultural, and I have an interest in how the collective subconscious works as much as I have an interest in how the individual subconscious works, because I think it's all utterly interconnected. It's utterly one cloth, and so part of the world that I inhabit as a little child is not just my own experience, but it's somehow the culture is conveying itself to me through my parents and through whatever is going on, and the rules that are laid down, spoken or unspoken. So I was just thinking about, there's a rule in television, started in radio and then in television, which is you never left dead airspace.
Right.
That there's something wrong. And in that world, you can understand it because people are paying for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I just think that's part of the culture. And I when I was a government official, I got what they called media training, and they taught us how to, they basically taught us how to lie on air. It was a fascinating training, and I wasn't a very good student because I immediately got that they were teaching me how to be manipulative. That was before I recognized that everything on TV is manipulative. So I just thought it was me.
Yeah.
So, it was like, wow. And of course, one of the rules was no silence, no silence. Always be ready with what you're going to say. And
Yeah.
it's a very artificial world as opposed to the world that you described. Two people who are in a relationship can find silence very companionable.
Mm-hmm. What I found for me is when I'm in this conversation, or I'm in facilitating mode, or I'm talking about this, and other times in my life, I am not thinking about anything. I do not have an agenda. I'm simply present and responding to what's happening around me in my environment in the moment. And I really like that place. And that's what I offer, and you offer in the Rusty Nail meeting, is a place of, and we have words for it, like spontaneous, authentic, organic, being in the flow, and yet they don't describe the actual experience of being here, and not having anything going on up here. It's simply, it's blank, and I I find myself saying a lot of things out of this flow instead of bullet point objectives, or and it's really rich and
Well, you
abundant.
said something. You said something at the top of the conversation, which really struck me, and I don't know if you intended to say that or it just came out, but you said something to the effect of the accountability practice is practicing me, as opposed to I'm practicing the practice.
Say that again.
I thought I heard you say something like the accountability practice is practicing me, as opposed to I'm practicing it.
Oh wow, there's nothing in my awareness about that, and the cool thing is that that's what you heard, or that's how you put it together.
That's what we can't roll the tape back right now and find out, but
yeah. And that's the way communication works. That another realization out of this practice is that whatever's going on in me, and the picture that I have and the feeling tone I have about it, is uniquely mine. And when I say or do around you, you have a completely unique you, which we're both interacting from that place, which is expansion, which is allowing expansion, because I can never know the world like you know it unless you tell me, unless you express, and then I have something added to me, and I'm doing the same thing for you. And it's a mutual evolution, growth that we find ourselves in without predetermining what that might look like and feel like. And it's, I don't have a word to describe it. But
well, that's another formulation that you often use in working groups or meetings. You'll say, what did you hear me say?
What did you hear me say? Yeah.
And again, I find that not only is that honoring as is the "Are you willing?" question. It's totally honoring what you just said. I'm honoring that you are going to hear this your way.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about how close what you heard is to what I intended you to hear.
Exactly. Yes.
And then the person would
And
say, well, I heard you say such and such. And it was really interesting. I started work with somebody I'm sponsoring, an ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, this week. And I found myself talking a little bit about this, that, and the other thing. I finally said, so what did you hear me say? And he was taking notes. So he actually told me everything I said. It was like, oh, okay. So I had to say, and what does that mean to you?
right. Yeah.
And then
That was one.
once I realized that he was writing down what I was saying word for word, that really wasn't the question that I was asking. So the question, because
Right.
he answered it formally and it was accurate. And so then I had to find out if he got any meaning out of it, or what meaning he got out of it. Then we had the conversation.
Yeah. When you described that, I was stuck in the need to be right. So I was one of those people that needed to listen to everything, get it right, so that I wasn't seen as stupid or
right.
What I've discovered is that doesn't exist. That's a figment of my imagination, and that it actually takes away from whatever experience I'm having with whoever, instead of adding to it. The need to be right, or the need to be good or obedient or attentive, or whatever was used as a form of abuse, like you don't care about me, you didn't listen to me, you're selfish. And the truth is, no, I'm uniquely me, and you ought to be grateful that I'm here so I can expand your awareness. And it's like a 3-year-old kid's like pointing up to their parents, you need to be grateful for me instead of telling me all this bullshit that you're trying to give me. So
I remember when in my 30s, 30 odd years ago, I became leader of a political group I was part of, and so I had to give speeches, and I had that bullet point thing, and I would like put my finger on the page and follow it down. And finally, a dear friend of mine came up to me afterwards. He goes, would you be willing to consider, and he didn't say that word, but he said, would you consider throwing that away and just speaking from your heart? He said, if you do that, I promise you, you will not be disappointed. So I decided to try it the next time. And it was like, from time to time after that, I'd use bullet points because I would sometimes have specific things that needed to be communicated, but I never used a script after that.
yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that was really wonderful advice. And I was willing to hear it.
Yeah.
Or I was ready to hear it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
So what I find is, and that's like when you speak, and now when I speak, when people sense that the speaker is coming from the heart, the speaker has no other agenda than being present with the group, people relax. People start listening a little more presently, with presence.
Yes.
They're less likely to wander off in their minds and go somewhere else. It's an alchemy that again doesn't submit itself easily to rational explanation, but I've had that experience both as someone in an audience listening and someone as a speaker being listened to.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, there's the word that I got is charismatic. There are some speakers who are charismatic, and it was one of my intentions early in my in my own work that it is my intent to be charismatic. It is my intent to be that, whatever it is I'm looking at. I want that.
Well, I'd like to circle back to that thing I heard you say, and maybe when you check the tape, you actually did say something like that.
Okay. All right.
About accountability was practicing me before I was practicing it. And for what I hear in that is that I'm surrendering to the spirit of what it is I'm intending to be. And somehow that is activating me rather than the other way around.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, I remember there's a quote Mozart said, something to the effect of, I don't compose music. It just comes through my fingers. I don't know where it comes from.
Right.
And so you could say the music was composing itself through Mozart, if you wanted to use that verbiage. And so I kind of got goosebumps when I heard you say that, because it sounded to me like a recognition of universal truth manifesting itself through this specific individual, but it's universal, and that's its power.
Yes. And as I think about it, I was in the 12-step rooms in a place of no blame, no judgment, sharing my experience, strength, and hope, listening to other people do the same thing, talking with it, and the experience was, I'm an alcoholic, this is what I did, without blame or judgment. I was being accountable. I was telling a story. The rule in the family was don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And I was breaking one of those rules. And it's a form of accountability where I'm not blame or judged. I maybe have done it to myself internally or self-critically, and the people in the room would thank me for my share and not comment or criticize or say, well, next time, John, say it better because you're
Right.
you're a dumbass. Or I mean, it's just not there, just not there. So it was practicing me, and then it came out in a, I don't know, formal way, but
Right.
in me building the work, the foundation for the work.
It came out as a practice that's easily worked through. It's not necessarily easy. I mean, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy because of all of those hidden resistances that we're dealing with. And tenacity, and I just speak for myself, the tenacity with which all of those shaming, blaming, self-violent thoughts and feelings that were hidden inside of me were really controlling things, and they're not going to give up easily, because that's how it thought it was keeping me safe. And until I had
when I display,
until I had consciousness of that, I was just at under its control.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my 50s.
When I display defense, I'm gonna say this. When I display defensiveness, there's something internal that says something is about to hurt me, so I need to be on the defensive. And that manifests in all the myriad of ways of avoiding behavior or self-criticism or other criticism or judgment, to get a good defensive stance, to get myself in whatever corner I need to be in so I'm safe. And one of the things that we could probably add to that list is that when I'm being defensive, I'm participating in my own oppression. I'm actually in the old belief, the old pattern, where I'm thinking something's happening that I need to defend myself. When I'm lucid in my authentic self, I'm not in a defensive mode. I'm in a receptive mode. I'm listening. I'm curious. I'm interested. I'm participating. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks for that. And when you say when you said that thing about being prepared to be hurt, however you just said that,
Yeah.
it made me think
Mhm.
isn't that what a trigger is? When I feel triggered,
Yeah.
aren't I just feeling like something bad's going to happen and I gotta go into defensive mode?
Yes. And most of that is knee-jerk, quick,
Right.
split second, and then I find myself in the behavior before I even know it's happening.
Yep.
And the fact that most of this accountability work is to understanding that that's happening internally, and quickly. It happens split second. I don't even know if we can like get the length of time, how short it is, where you're in a reactive mode. It's instantaneous, and it's like, oh
My
my God.
experience is it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
It's like if they put electrodes on me, maybe, maybe they could detect it. Maybe they could detect like
Yeah.
1,000th of a nanosecond space, but
Right. Yeah.
certainly for all practical intents and purposes, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that's my body going into defensive mode to look out something's about to hurt. I'm
Exactly.
about, yeah, really cool.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that hurt also, because it's only been in the last year or so of doing this work that I actually became aware of the intensity of that pain.
Hmm.
Doing work both with you, with Dan, and with my therapist, I've actually experienced that, and it's like it gave me a whole new sense of respect for that little kid, because yeah, I don't want to feel that as an adult.
Right.
As an adult, I've got tools to deal with it and support myself through it. A little 1-year-old or 2-year-old doesn't have any of that. No wonder my defenses are so powerful, because it hurts.
That's been one of the things that's been on the back of my mind, is the intensity of the trauma that I experienced as an infant, toddler, young little guy, and how instantaneous this it's like a devolution into this hyper vigilant place, figuring something out. Get like, it's this frenetic feeling, and it happened so quick and out of the blue. It happened to me actually yesterday. I was with a lot of people who respect me and love me, and I said something, and something happened in the room that was familiar to that little child, and I went into a 2-hour what the hell just happened. And like you said, I have the tools. So I, instead of defending it or trying to get rid of it, I just went into it, and into the frenetic, how come I said it? And I was beating myself up. It's like, you always do stuff like that. And once I recognized the old critical voice, I go, oh, there it is. That's that. Something happened. And I simply kept breathing and knowing that I'm safe, knowing that everybody in that room loves me and respects me, and that this is an internal work for me. And I worked through it in, I don't know the time span, but it was a short period of time. And it's insidious. It's just, after 32 years of focused recovery, 22 years of facilitating, and boom, I was like, somebody cut me off at my knees, right? I just collapsed into it. It was intense. And I'm so grateful for what I've done up until this point, because I used to live my life up until my mid 40s in that pain, in that constant hypervigilant, oh my God, I don't know what's going on.
Without being
And I
aware
can,
that that's what you were experiencing.
right. And the visualization I got is that little child had no idea what was going on. It was terrified, terrorized, petrified with fear. And through this process, I was able to release and relieve and nurture that little kid, that little guy. So
You made me wonder if there were if we could even suggest just to play around with this a little bit, like a mathematical formula that I can appreciate the intensity of the pain I'm avoiding based on the intensity of the defenses that I experience.
Oh, I like that. I think they're in proportion.
Yeah.
They're proportionately, yes. And that would speak to all kinds of levels of criminality and different acts people do to hide this or
Right.
to
Never
get away
forget.
from this feeling. Yes, unbelievable.
It would also help. It would
Yeah.
also help the tendency that some of us have to compare our trauma to others and then downplay ours because we weren't sexually abused or physically beaten. And I mean, it's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with the individual experience, which cannot be predicted ahead of time. It's just what is. It's what happens.
Right.
Each individual comes into this world into a set of explicitly specific circumstances and is going to respond in real time to whatever's happening. And if it feels death like death, there's going to be a defense that's going to be strong enough to prevent that. And it doesn't really matter what it is. What matters is the kid's experience of it and the defense that he or she creates so that it doesn't ever happen again.
Right. Yeah.
Because oftentimes I hear people downplay their own experience because I did that initially. It's like, well, I had a fairly decent, my parents put a roof over my house. They sent me to Catholic schools. They gave me, I was never hungry. We got beaten from time to time, but it wasn't systematic and it wasn't hospitalized or any of that kind of stuff. So there's a tendency I fell into that tendency to downplay my experience as if there's a shame in not being as brutalized as somebody else, until I began to understand that each person's experience is unique, and each person's experience is worthy of being cherished, honored, appreciated, so that that person can find a place to find recovery, to learn reparenting, as we said in the last podcast, that accountability is one way to think about how to reparent, is to use this practice and to experience the unconditionality that little children come into this world assuming. And soon we find out, to our sadness, that it's there's all kinds of conditions.
Yeah, and your pain is your pain, and it's not to try to categorize it. It's yours, and
right.
Yeah. I fell into that same trap. I had a fairly good life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it circles all the way back to no blame, no judgment. So judgment includes that kind of comparing.
Yes.
Comparing is a form of judging.
Exactly.
The other thing that was kind of interesting to learn in this practice is to not judge myself when I found myself judging.
Yeah, I'm judging my judgments.
Right. It's like, no, I see my mind is judging. That's okay. I'm just not gonna hold it tightly. But that was a hard one. Because I want to be a good little boy too, John. So I don't want the facilitator to see me blaming or judging myself.
Right.
Or the group.
Yeah. Or the group.
And so then I would sit there and I go, this is fucking stupid. And say, well, I can't say that out loud. Because I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, right.
So then I learned to say, okay, I'm judging myself. So I'm not going to have a judgment about that I'm judging. Like, I'm not going to blame myself. It's just happening. The accountability is, this is what's happening.
This mechanism can be really subversive.
Yeah.
It can be, and it can use any little thing to bring a person back into whatever that loop is that
can and will.
And it will.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I didn't see on your list was what you resist persists and prevails. So the path of non-resistance is accepting and actually giving yourself permission. It's like I'm judging the judgment, and then I'm judging myself for telling you that I'm judging the judgment. So I'm like triple, I'm in a trifecta here. And then giving yourself permission to judge.
Yep.
I hope that as a human being, and I judge every little thing plus my judgments, and I give myself permission to judge, which is the opening to the loving parent. It's, in other words, okay, try it out, see how it works for you. When you get tired, let me know. I'll be right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So these are all things that we learn through the loving patience that it takes to do this work.
Yes.
I sometimes don't like to tell people I've been doing this for 10 years because I have a belief that if I tell them that, they'll say, oh my God, it's going to take me 10 years. But I tell them anyway, because it's the truth.
Yeah. You know what I say to them? I say, how long is it going to take? I said, I don't know how long you got. And what are you doing in the meantime? I mean, you know, if you got something busy, you got something important you got to do, go ahead and do it. But
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, the addressing point is the beginning of the end of it. So however long it takes, it doesn't matter to me. And it starts now. As soon as you make the decision, I'm doing this. No, you're not going to be like somebody who's been doing it for 10 years and you're going to be doing it. You are going to be to somebody else that's not doing it a friggin' saint. So just just hang in there. And yeah, it's discouraging and it seems daunting, and yes, it does. And let's start. Let's make the decision and go. Yeah.
And sometimes people stop coming because they're too caught up in it, they're too scared or whatever. But you know, once you get a taste of it, it's always there to come back to.
Right.
No matter what.
I don't know who said it, but you can't unlearn something you learned.
Right.
Yeah. And it'll be with you. So.
Well, the other thing though is something that you've said before in a different form perhaps, but not only can you not unlearn something you've learned, but the world that's been changed because you've learned it cannot go back.
Right. Yes. We're getting back to the race consciousness community.
Right.
When I shift, I'm part of the community.
Yeah.
So when I shift, my energy shifts, and we use the term higher, and I'm not so sure it is higher, but it is different. That different energy infuses with the race consciousness and changes the whole race consciousness. And in my mind, that's what I'm able to do right now. I mean, if I could talk to everybody on the planet, I would. And it's just not possible, nor do I mesh with everybody on the planet. So I'm going to address my field of responsibility. And that's for me right now, internal, and whoever comes to me asking me questions. And that affects the whole. It cannot not.
Right.
I mean, I could exclude myself from that, but then I'd be arrogant again, thinking I'm better than. So no, I'm part of it. And when I change, the whole thing changes.
I was talking to one of our colleagues about the elections and the politics and stuff, and I said, you know, maybe the most political thing you can do is accountability.
Yeah. Wow.
You want to change the world? Here's where it is.
Oh, wow. I'm curious as to what his response was.
Well, he got it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is somebody that's been doing the work for a while. So he, I mean, of course he hadn't thought about it that way. So, and as you know, sometimes when I speak, I can be pretty persuasive. But I said, just, you know, you can't change other people, which is because I kind of went through the accountability thing and said, what do you want? What's your judgment of the rest of the world? What's the judgment of the world because it's not behaving the way you think it should?
Right.
And we kind of walked through that. And I said, so when we did it, so what do you want, etc. So he wanted peace.
Right.
So I said, well, then consider the possibility that what you just did, this practice that John taught us, accountability, is perhaps the most powerfully political thing we can do right now.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Yes. Yeah.
And so when he got that, he said, Well, I never thought of it that way. I said, well, yeah, probably most of us don't, but,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, frankly, I never thought of it till we were in this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but that just came to me.
Mm-hmm. People, especially in the jail, they would say, oh, John, that's okay for here, but what about the real world? And I would like, well, whatever's real is happening right now. So this is the real world, and your choice. Yeah, I don't know. When you get back out there, you choose what you want to do. You do what you want to do. There's no separating yourself from yourself, which is you in the world. Right. So that's it.
The old line, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. Very good.
Well, John, we've managed to say something without a script for about an hour now.
There. Hey.
We didn't even get to the principles.
No, we didn't even get to the principles. And I remember when we were talking before that we'd gone through them before, and it's always good to recap, go over them again, because I never say the same thing.
Right.
Exactly the same way. So,
well, over the last couple of weeks, I've gotten some feedback from people that have been watching this podcast, and the universal comment is, I've heard you say this before, but when I listened to you and John talk about it, I finally got it.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
ooh, yeah.
You know, and this is somebody just sort of picking a podcast at random. I don't even know when, something from June perhaps, but
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's part of the power of this. We're essentially inviting other people to look over our shoulders and be part of this conversation as well. And for anybody who's watching for the first time, if you'd like to contact John, his contact information is at the end of this podcast, or if you'd like to check out the accountability practice group that I'm part of, it's called the Rusty Nail Club, and we called it Rusty Nail because a lot of people, like an old dog, want to sit on that rusty nail and just howl until we finally decide it hurts too much and we get up off of it. And so accountability is a way to help us change our behavior and find a new way, a better way, a more powerful way, a way that really makes our hearts sing freely. So information on how to participate in these meetings, which we do on Zoom, is also at the end of this podcast. So please feel free to avail yourselves of that if you want, or if there's something that you'd like John and me to talk about, shoot either of us a note and we'll be happy to do it. So as always, John, I'd like to let you have the last word.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God. What am I going to say? What am I going to say?
What does your script say?
Yeah. Accountability. If you go to the dictionary, don't do that accountability. That means punishable, liable, and there's usually some kind of jail sentence that goes along with it. That's not the accountability I'm talking about. The accountability I'm talking about is simply the ability to account for where I find myself. No blame, no judgment. There you go.
I'd say amen.
Okay.
Well, thanks, John. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
And look forward to the next one.
You got it.